Hi guys, William Morris here, and today we're going to be taking a look at Symphonic AI. So this is a library that's been jointly developed with Sample Logic and Red Room Audio. And if I could sum up what the library is in a sentence, I guess I would say that it's an orchestrally based library that's been processed with rhythm and motion in mind. So the library itself downloads as 13 gigabytes, and it's for the full version of Kontakt 5.8.1 or higher, so it won't work in the free Kontakt Player version. Okay, so let's jump right in because this is a big library and there's quite a lot to get through and definitely a lot going on in the UI and the engine side of things. So the concept of the library is that it's made up of 4 cores or layers. So here's number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. What you see in the center here is an XY pad that you can use to blend between these layers or cores. And you can do that in a few different ways as well. The basic one is just that it controls the level. So the closer I go to one of the patches, the more it's going to be featured. There's also an option to record the movements that you make with the XY pad. So each full patch is, as I say, made up of 4 different cores. And within each core, we have a sound source, which is generally something from the orchestra. So we can see brass sustains, we've got solo flutes and oboe and bassoon patches, and strings. And then each layer or core also has an accompanying preset, which generally controls processing and the rhythmic ideas tied to it. Each core is also given an area of the keyboard to be played on. So it's divided into zones generally. So maybe a lower bassier instrument will be in a lower zone, and some of your more melodic mid-range stuff will be in the middle. And then you might have something on the top end as well. I would say for the full patches, if you have like an 88 key keyboard, that's definitely going to be a help, because with anything lower, sometimes you're going to be cutting off these zones, and you can either adjust that, or I guess you can do that on your keyboard as well with octave up and down. But just something to bear in mind, if maybe you've got like a 25 key keyboard, you are going to be either doing a lot of scrolling or readjusting if you want to be playing the full patches. The next page on, Step, is dedicated to the rhythmic programming of the patch. So in this view, we can see it for all 4 of the cores. But if you use the edit tool, you can get a more sort of in-depth view for each of the cores in turn. So you'll find by default that a lot of the patches have already been programmed with a rhythmic intention behind them. But I think one of the strengths of this library is being able to take that programming and alter pretty much anything you want within it. But we'll come back to the step sequencer in a second. Just want to move on to the effects page. So again, this is per core. So you can have all these different effects per core, and they're kind of in a stomp box style with an on and off switch there. And then finally, there's a master section, which will apply to all of the cores that you have loaded. Okay, so let's jump back to the main page, and I'll just use this first preset as an example of how it roughly works. So you can see as I play there in a few of the zones we have active that you get the levels coming up from within each core. Now the majority of things I'm going to be playing with this library is kind of just holding down single keys and then letting the step sequencer play something out rhythmically. And although this feels like the main design of the library to have all these kind of great rhythmic patches and ideas and stuff like that, you can, if you want, just turn off the engine entirely, and you can turn off per core for the step sequencer, or you can obviously program your own sequences as well. There are also a number of patches that don't have any kind of rhythmic programming as well, and they're meant to be played just as you would a normal string sample, for instance. So on this main page, I can turn cores on and off, and you can see the zones disappearing there and being re-enabled. And here's how you can turn on the step sequencer on and off. And as we go through the patches, you'll see that some have this enabled by default and some don't have it at all. So one more control for the main page, which might not be self-evident, like the attack release and low and high cut, for example, is this intensity dial here, which is tied onto the effects animator. So basically the effects animator is a sort of further step sequencer and rhythmic editor, but for the effects section. So it all ties into what we have on the effects here. And a lot of these are, as you can see, rhythmic. So this one's set on 16ths. This is for things like a tremolo effect, say, that you've got maybe set to 16ths. And the dial and the animator can be obviously turned on and off or modified entirely with the steps here. So hopefully that's explained a little bit of the UI. Last couple of things on the main page would be there's a latch feature up here. So obviously if you hit that, you can hit a key and it will just continue to play even if you take your finger away. And this one up on the right hand side is to randomize the parameters within all the cores, so you can get a sort of roll of the dice effect. And there's also a little tab here which will allow you to choose which things are being randomized. So you could say that you only want to randomize the source sounds or just the presets or one of the cores and not the others, that type of thing. Okay, so let's have a listen to some of the presets and then I'll move on to the in-depth kind of side of the step sequencer. Okay, so there's a couple of ways of selecting your patches. You can either just arrow through them or you can go into the patch browser, and it's a tag-based system. So you basically just select a characteristic that you like. So maybe you want something ambient and slow attack. And obviously that narrows down your choices for this list here. And you can also use the little heart symbol to favorite things that you like the sound of. So let's just unselect everything. And we'll start at the beginning. As you can see, there's obviously a huge amount of patches, and this is just to get you started. So we're just going to run through a few. Okay, so as you can probably hear, I think the patches are really sort of nicely geared towards very specific use cases. You know, they really kind of evoke a particular scene or style or something. And I think for scoring to picture, these are going to be kind of a really inspiring range of sounds, just because they do kind of instantly drop you into a particular mood. All right, so let's keep going. Let's do another one. So I'm just playing really simple things, just holding down one or two keys to give you an idea of the movement that's generated with the patches. And I'll also be playing something pretty similar every time, just to give you a kind of reference point. Okay, let's keep going. And let's try another. like that one. Let's do another. So again, like a really kind of cool, moody thing going on where you can instantly start to picture a scene coming together. You know, and I'm really not playing anything interesting at all, kind of by design, just to show you how the patches move kind of on their own. So let's jump back into the browser and see if we can get something specific that we want to go for. I'm going to say I want something panoramic, slow motion, and let's go for something clean and evolving. So that's still a pretty big list there. Let's try interplanetary piece. That's cool, that's really nice. I'm sort of missing off a lot of these top zones because my keyboard's 61, and I'm obviously having to octave down to get some of the lower stuff started, so I'll just click on a few of these. This is like a nice kind of high sustained string patch. Okay, let's do a couple more. Nice, okay, let's just skip through a few quickly at random then, or we could even use the randomize button just to see what we come out with. Let's randomize again. So, I mean, the randomize is really fun. Like, you can just kind of keep going, and it's a bit of a rabbit hole to go down to listen to everything. But let's jump into a preset. As a choker one. Be interesting. Cool. Okay, so I've chosen this patch just to show you the step filter in a bit more detail, and just because this one's nice and spiccato. So now let's go into the step editor and see what's happening. So our core one is doing this short little 8-note pattern, just solo that layer. And the next one. And the final one. So essentially we've got 4 different rhythms kind of playing together, but we can control anything in the step sequence that we want to change or that we don't like. So you can select different note values in the top there. You can turn the note on or off in this bottom right hand corner. So say I didn't want every first beat active, I could just go through and take them off. And these sliders below allow me to control the velocity of each hit. We can also alter our overall steps in the sequence. And there's a really nice thing here that basically calculates how long your sequence is based on the note values that you've inputted. So if I actually turn this up to 17, it will tell you which note values you need to add back in to fill the next bar up, basically, so to fill 2 bars in this case. So that's a really nice little feature that just saves you a bit of time and calculation. I'm just going to drop it back down to the 16, and then you can see we're 1 bar long again because all of these 16ths will add up properly. So we have a huge amount of control just on this page in of itself, but we can also go in with a bit more detail, and from this section we're allowed to even change what each step does. So we could choose maybe a stutter step for the first one. And below you have all your stutter speeds and stuff like that as well. So obviously it's a 32nd at the minute, which is fairly high. Let's go for a 16th. So you have a crazy amount of control over the rhythmic parameters in this step sequencer. And a really cool feature for your DAW is basically that you can drag and drop the MIDI that's been programmed here directly into your DAW, which is super cool because, I mean, if you made something in this instrument and you then wanted to maybe add the same pattern into another library, you know, that would be just a really quick way of doing that rather than having to reprogram the MIDI yourself inside your DAW just to match up with the patch you'd created in Symphonic AI. I guess I just wanted to show how versatile you can get with these patches. So I'll just do a quick playthrough of a few more. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed taking a look at this library with me. It's actually been a really fun one to review and kind of go through because, like I say, there's some really inspiring kind of presets. But I think the real strength in this library is the ability to alter and mold everything to suit your own tracks. So overall, I'm really impressed with this library. It's got a great mix of out-of-the-box fun and inspiration, but it kind of pairs that with the ability to go really deep on the edit and get into kind of every sound and form it your own way, you know. I think they've done a great job with the UI, considering how much functionality is in it to kind of keep things, you know, fairly clean and uncluttered. And you have a ton of control really just from core and step to be able to alter the patches yourself. I think anyone scoring to picture or especially doing kind of cinematic music stuff is going to probably find quite a lot in this library to enjoy. On the downsides, I have had a little trouble with loading times, especially the initial load of the main patch. I carried out a batch save before doing this review, but it's definitely quite a lengthy wait when you first instate the patch. And I'm thinking if you have multiple instances of this in a project, then that could become a little bit of an issue. But I'm hoping there'll be an update to maybe address some of that in the future. But yeah, overall, I'm super impressed. I think especially at the intro pricing, this is going to be pretty attractive to a lot of people. So guys, I hope you found this video helpful anyway, and I'll see you again on the next one.